And tonight we're talking about physics and physiology and calories. And I know this is a topic that some people don't really like to hear about. They don't want to hear about calories. And there's all sorts of misunderstandings about this. So calorie is basically a unit of measure of energy. That's all it is. It's a unit of measure of energy. So it's actually 1 kilocal is what we use in nutrition. And that's the amount of energy it takes to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. So there you go.
A calorie raises a cubic centimeter.
So now you know, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, it's just a measure, a unit of energy. So all of our food that we take in breaks down it's either inorganic or organic. And I'm using that word in the chemical sense. It's kind of interesting. Marketing takes words and uses them in ways that make scientists kind of amused, right? So, for example, how many of you have seen in the market organic salt for sale? You haven't seen? Well, if you look, they market all organic salt, which of course is actually not organic salts, because organic salts are usually very toxic. The salt is actually inorganic. It's a mineral that's not organic at all. Anyway, so in our food, there's minerals and there's water. That's the inorganic stuff. And the organic stuff is either digestible or not digestible. So if it's not digestible, that's what we call dietary fiber. And then all the rest of the digestible stuff that's where we derive all of our calories, all of our what are called macronutrients from the digestible stuff in our food. And all of that has some stored energy, and that's stored there by whatever made the stuff, the plant or the animal that this stuff came from. So for adults, since our mineral stores in our body are relatively stable, then we can operate on the assumption that calories in equals calories out. And if there's a mismatch between that, then our weight is going to change to reflect that. So what I put down here, calories in minus calories out equals change in weight. So it's this basic formula, mathematic formula. And anyone who says that that's not true is engaging in some kind of magical thinking, or they're trying to sell you something. And there's lots and lots of people out there trying to sell some shortcut. So you don't have to exercise. You can eat whatever you want. Just, take our magic formula and you'll lose weight. And we talked about those the other night, that they're all a scam of some sort. So bottom line, it comes right down to if we're serious about adjusting our weight, we have to adjust this calories in, calories out. And the basic way of doing that is change the calories in, is eat less or more, depending on what your goal is. And calories out is primarily physical exercise, is our primary way of burning calories. So physical exercise and, of course, adjusting our basal metabolic rate. So I want to share with you an image. Oh, here we have some more smoothies coming in. Do you want to say anything about the smoothies that they're eating?
Yes, sure. Good evening. Here to see you all. So, most of the smoothies, besides the one that Amanda has, I'm looking for Amanda. Okay. Have banana. They have banana, pineapple, watermelon, fresh apples, fresh oranges, fresh strawberries as well, and berries. We have cherries as well, blueberries or cherries. And then the green one is a combination of spinach, lemon, orange, ginger, garlic, and we added some. So it's kind of like It's a healthy boost. Wait, Al?
I like this, but it's the other was.
Oh,
You like that one better. All right, good.
Does it have cilantro in?
no. I put some watermelon to hopefully dilute it.
Just a little bit. Okay.
Yes, so that's it.
All right.
Enjoy.
So there you go. Different, more options. Like put the whole fruit market in the one, and then all right.
The darker one is a blueberry.
Easy. You went per spoon.
So, Amelia, the green one is good. You can have it.
All right. So I want you to imagine a car. And when I imagine this car, it's a Volkswagen Bug for some reason. Driving along, and they get pretty good gas mileage. And so what if I just decide that I'm gonna fill up with gas every day? I'm gonna put 10 gallons of gas in my car, but I just live down the street and I only use 5 gallons running around every day. What's going to happen to me? Put that gas in the car. I'm putting in 10 gallons. What happens to the other 5 gallons?
Gas somewhere else.
It's going to like flow out on the ground and cause a big mess. But imagine if my car was smart enough
And a flexible gas tank.
to have a flexible gas tank and expand to save the extra gas. That would be really cool, because if I was going on a long trip, I could put a lot of gas in there. I could drive a long ways before I have to refill. But if every day, maybe not make it so extreme, but if every day I use 5 gallons and I put 6 gallons in the tank, then what's going to happen over time? Not just a flexible gas tank, but like the whole car can expand, right? So you put every day you put in 1 more gallon than you use, and the car is going to kind of swell up little by little. And then pretty soon there's so much gas in there, the car can barely move because it's not strong enough to go up hills anymore. And so I have to just, go on the flat or put it in low gear if I'm trying to get up a hill. And what would be my options if I wanted to reduce that excess fuel that's being stored up in the car?
You drive a lot. Driving bar.
Oh, he wants me to tuck my shirt in or untuck it. Is that good? Okay. What would be my options? Well, I could put in less gas for sure. That would work over time. What else could I could turn up the idle on the engine so that it's constantly idling at a faster rate and burning more gas. Or drive farther. Yeah, what else could I do? Drive faster? I could get a bigger car. Well, that ruins this. What if I put in a bigger engine? I could take out that little, what does Volkswagen have? Like a little flat four air-cooled thingy in there. Tell you my dream, so I'm going to tell you just a little bit my dream car.
Okay.
The Porsche 914. Any of you know Porsche 914? They're originally made with a horizontally opposed 4-cylinder engine from Volkswagen. So my car, we take out that and we shoehorn in there an LS7 out of a that's a Corvette engine, right? 600 horsepower Corvette engine in this little tiny Porsche car. It's mounted in the middle of the car. So you shove that in there and all of a sudden you have a race-worthy car. That's really cool. But it's going to burn a lot more gas than that little 4-cylinder, right? Even just at idle. So you got the picture. So people are kind of like that. If we put more fuel in than we use up, our bodies store that. And that's a good thing. The problem is if we persist day after day, year after year, putting in a little bit more than we use up every single day, we store that until it becomes a problem. And then our bodies try to reject that. And one way it does that is increasing insulin resistance, and that creates diabetes. And then what do people do when they have diabetes and you check their urine? You see there's sugar in the urine because the calories are just spilling out now, because the body is trying to get rid of those, and that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Okay, so for our purposes, the first step on this path is eating less, and you've already been doing that. You fasted. You've been on this smoothie diet. Everybody's been losing weight. I think I didn't look at the numbers, but I'm guessing everybody's lost some weight from when they started.
So when you lose 10 pounds, where does that fat go?
Okay, that's a good question. When you lose 10 pounds, where does the fat go? So if you lost 10 pounds, it probably wasn't all fat. So probably some of that's water, weight loss, but a good share of it's going to be fat loss. And where that fat goes is it gets metabolized and used for energy for muscles and nerve cells and everything else. And it's just used up. Fat is just stored energy. And when you're not eating to provide for your energy needs, then your body uses that fat to live off of for muscles and brain and everything else. So
As you exhale, you breathe out water vapor, that carbon dioxide. And that carbon is, when you burn something, like it turns black, right? Well, CO2 is aerosol carbon.
So the question is, we're going to kind of go over this a little bit tonight of how much you should eat. I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted. There's like 4 different conversations going on. All right, thank you. So the question that a lot of people ask is, how much should I eat? And we're going to get to that in a moment. But before we do, on page 4, I'm going to page 4 now. And this is your go-to page for your nutrition plan. And right at the top, that one paragraph pretty much says everything that you really, really need to know about nutrition. That is, eat whole foods, mostly a variety of fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes, with some nuts and seeds. Minimize processed foods and animal products, and eliminate toxins and artificial chemicals, and drink water. It's fairly simple. The rest of the page gives a little more detail because people always want to know more. So I think the first thing there, stop poisoning your body, is kind of something we all agree on. Next thing, eat 3 meals a day or 2. If you're in a weight loss phase, 2 is good, but generally 3. And you want, typically, breakfast is going to be the largest meal and lunch close second to that. Dinner or supper is going to be a light meal if you have it at all. Eat breakfast every day. You can skip dinner, but you need to eat breakfast unless you're fasting for some particular purpose, but just as a routine. And in fact, just in the last 2 years, there's more studies that have come out showing that there's actually a correlation. The later in the day your first meal is correlated with a higher risk of dying.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Gonna do that.
So if you skip breakfast and lunch is your first meal of the day, that puts you into a high risk category for bad stuff happening to you. So we've known this and taught this for years and years and years, but now there's more research coming out to say this. So breakfast and lunch, supper is optional. Have only water between meals. typically 6 glasses of water is going to be a minimum for most people, unless you have some specific medical condition, congestive heart failure or kidney failure or something like that. Then you're going to have to work with your doctor on what's appropriate. But for otherwise, if you don't have some sort of condition like that, you want to drink enough water so that your urine is clear most of the time. And for most people, that's going to be at least 6 glasses, maybe 8, sometimes more, depending on how much activity you're doing during the day. Vegan, that is no animal products, is the best for most people in most situations. Lacto-ovo, that is using dairy products and eggs, is a second best choice. And omnivorous, that's eating everything, is kind of a distant third when it comes to health and also economy as well. Just out of curiosity, is there anyone in here that does not see themselves becoming a vegetarian or being vegetarian? Sure. Any like dedicated carnivores here? No. Okay. Because I have had some people in the class that are like, I'm not giving up meat. And for those people, I tell them, if that's the case, make sure that you're limiting the quantity and improving the quality. So free range, wild game, things like that, a lot better than the junk meats that they sell in, most of the meat counters and fast food places. Which don't eat that junk.
Where does fish fall into this?
So fish falls in there. It's probably a better choice than most red meats, and certainly than processed meats, but it's still not ideal. So if you are going to add fat, so for right now and for the first month, we're asking you not to add fat to your food. But if you do so very sparingly and just very small amounts, and it's going to be things like olive oil and other vegetable oils. We want to avoid hydrogenated oils. We'll explain that more when we get to the lecture on fat. I have a whole lecture on fat where we'll explain all about that. So the 4 food groups are going to be basically, you might think of it as grains, beans, and tubers. So that's things like potatoes. And then fruits and vegetables, and then nuts and seeds. And nuts and seeds are kind of in their own category. They're usually high in protein and high in fat. And so I include in there olives and avocados, which actually are nuts, if you think about it, right? We eat the outside part, not the inside part. Right? You don't eat the avocado seed, you eat the flesh around the seed. Okay. And in about half of your plate, so when you fill up your plate, think about half of it being fresh fruits or vegetables, and then the other half being those whole grains or legumes, and a little bit for nuts and seeds. And that's going to be kind of your general eating plan. And if in doubt, eat the fruits and vegetables first. You get that high quality vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, and all that stuff in first before going to fill up on the other stuff.
With a nice helping of fiber to help you fill up more.
Yeah. All right. Now the question is how much, and how many calories do we need? Well, it's different for everybody. There's not a simple way of giving you a precise answer. However, we can give you some ballpark ideas. One way of doing that is if you've been using the app and logging your food intake for the last couple of weeks, you have a fair idea of what your baseline caloric intake is to maintain what you were, okay? So if you want to lose weight, you have to reduce that by some percentage. So we're going to give you some calculations here so that you can calculate, if you want to, some estimated goals for caloric intake. And I say estimated because everybody's metabolism is a little bit different. And the only way to really know if you're getting it right is to do something to monitor the results and then adjust what you're doing to get the results that you want, right? So that being said, we can start with the estimate for most people somewhere around 13 to 15 kilocalories or calories per pound of your body weight goal.
Where are you reading this at? Page high. Oh.
Yeah. So, and then I have here a sample calculation. We'll do that. We'll go through that in a minute. So that's calories. And then the other common question I get all the time is, how much protein do I need? Because everybody now believes that protein is the most important thing and carbs are bad and protein is where it's at. And we'll address that. We have a whole lecture on carbohydrates. But for our general purposes here, the American Dietetic Association recommends this range of 0.8 kilograms per pound of body weight. So, and I am saying, hey, this is your ideal body weight or your target body weight. Okay. So if your goal is to stay at the weight you are, use your current weight to calculate this. And that might be an interesting thing to do, to figure out if you kept track of your caloric intake before you changed it and you knew what your daily caloric intake was, you could do the math and see if this comes out pretty close. But you don't need to do that. So that 0.8 kilograms per pound of ideal body weight. And so then the next thing that we can calculate is going to be the calories from fat. And that's our recommendation is that's going to probably be somewhere around 20 or perhaps as high as 30% of calories, typically closer to 20 for most people, especially if you're trying to lose weight. And then the rest is carbohydrates. And when you do the math on this, it's going to seem like a lot of carbohydrates, but we're going to keep in mind that what we're recommending is not sugar, but fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And so those carbohydrates are complex carbs. So you can see here, I just went through this with an example of somebody who weighs 160 pounds, but they want to weigh 130 pounds. And so then you calculate, and you see the difference in the calories needed to maintain those two body weights. And then for the 130 pound body weight, 20% of those calories from fat would be 338. And so there's 9 calories per gram, so that's 37 grams of fat. And then protein, if you do the math on that, it's going to come out to 188 calories of protein, or 47 grams. And then the rest, 1,164 calories, are from carbohydrates.
Oh, dude, take the whole tray.
So now you have opportunity to do the math here if you want to. I'm not saying you have to. And here's the thing. If you eat following the plan that we just talked about, where you're eating a variety of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes and nuts and seeds, and you're getting enough calories, you're going to get enough protein, you're going to get enough fat, and you're going to get enough carbs. Our bodies are actually capable of adjusting a little bit. And so these numbers are not absolute precise numbers. And God made our bodies so that they can actually do pretty good with a range of macronutrients. Okay. But if you want to do the math, and that helps you feel better as you track your food intake to know that you're getting enough protein, this is a way you can do it. So the first one is just figuring your goal weight, and then the next one is going to be the protein, and then the fat, and then the carbohydrates. So any questions about that little math problem there? It seems very complex, but it's not actually that complex. It's just new to you probably. So we're not going to take the time to do this right now as a group. You're welcome to do it on your own. You can work it out later tonight or tomorrow. If you have problems or if something just doesn't seem right, bring it back tomorrow and I'll look at it with you and see if we can sort it out. So the last thing on that is 3,500 calories is 1 pound of fat. Or I should say the other way around. 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So if you want to lose a pound, you have to figure out how to reduce your intake or burn 3,500 calories. And so I recommend for people that are trying to lose weight, a goal of 1 to 2 pounds a week, which doesn't sound like a lot. And, you know, when you're fasting and on a smoothie diet, most people lose a little faster than that, but that's not really sustainable. So a good sustainable goal is 1 pound a week, 2 pounds a week. If you're on the heavier side, you have more to lose, that's okay. But if you think about it, 2 pounds a week it's not a huge goal until you think about maintaining it for a year. That would be 100 pounds. Okay. Well, that is a pretty major thing, you know, so, and it might not be appropriate for everybody, but think of something in that range, 1 pound or 2 a week. And so that's 3,500 calories a week that you have to change that balance. That's 500 calories a day. So when you break it down to think, okay, 500 calories a day, I have to either eat 500 calories less or burn 500 calories more, or maybe split the difference. I need to burn 250 calories more and eat 250 calories less. The 250 calories, that's a soft drink or a granola bar. And, you know, exercise, well, we'll talk more about that when we get to exercise, but it takes a little bit of work to burn 250 calories. So for a lot of people, it's easier in the beginning to cut back more on the intake, and it's easier to lose faster that way. But then in the long run, it turns out that exercise is really important in maintaining that, because your body adjusts. Instead of putting in a 8-cylinder engine, when you're starving, your body goes like, oh, we're going to shut down those 4 cylinders. We're going to go back to 4 cylinders or 2 cylinders. We're going to put along on 1 cylinder because we're starving, right? And then it doesn't, like you kind of force your body to burn more by doing that exercise, and it keeps all 8 cylinders going, and then you can actually lose weight. So, any questions on the macronutrient numbers or calculation, anything like that, before I move to the next page? No. Okay, does that mean that you all understood what I said? No, you don't understand. Okay.
I didn't calculate it out for me, but I said,
Is there something I can help with, or you just need more time to read it and go through it yourself? Okay. I don't know what it means when there's no questions, like I either totally missed it or everybody got it, and I don't know. All right, so we'll let you read it over at home, see if you can work through it if you want to. The last page here, not the last page, we have 2 more pages to go. Page 6, tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow is the end of the 3-day smoothie diet. Yay. So here's the thing. Hopefully you've already planned ahead for this, because we warned you that you needed to plan ahead. But we want you to go to this whole food. So whole food is not going in the blender now, unless you really want to. Like, you if you really, really want to, you could keep that up a little bit longer, but you probably need to start adding in a little bit more protein and a little bit more fat to make it a good, healthy, balanced diet. So now you get to eat an apple for breakfast. Look at some whole grains, so some whole grain cereal. But we really want to stay with that whole plant foods as much as possible. So maybe you have a handful of nuts. Maybe you have some whole grain cereals. There are whole grain cereals that you can buy prepared, but there's not very many that don't have sugar added to them. Okay, so you got to watch out for that because we're not doing added sugar. So usually that means you got to go and like cook something, like your oatmeal or your whole grain cornmeal or something. On Thursday, we're going to give you some whole grain cereal for supper. It's going to be a breakfast, but we're going to do it at supper time. So you're going to be a little bit maybe not quite sure what to eat because we haven't gone into great detail, but just keep in your mind whole plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. So, brown rice. Everybody probably knows how to cook brown rice. So there's a whole grain. Cook lentils, beans, and we'll get into more detail on that. But those are the kind of things that we're looking to be the foundation for that diet. Okay? And you can always revert to a smoothie if you need to. Hopefully not too much.
Wednesday for me, so we're a little bit later.
Yeah, so tomorrow night we're not serving food because it is later. So you look on page 6 right here, eat your last meal at least 3 hours before bedtime. And so hopefully, like usually the other way I say this is don't eat after 7 at night. And I know there's different schedules and sometimes people's schedules don't match up. Well, that's a good rule of thumb is the later it is, the less you should eat. And when we're getting, after 7 o'clock, maybe you should skip that meal. Unless you're trying to gain weight, then that's a whole different scenario. But these are keys for weight control on page 6. Exercise 5 to 6 days a week. Exercising before breakfast is a good thing for burning fat because that's going to be when you're in a fasting state. Your blood sugar stores are going to be low. You start exercising, your body needs more sugar. And so it has to convert over to burning fat in the place because you're running out of sugar already. So eat less. I know it's obvious, but sometimes we just have to state the obvious. So just eat less. And you've been doing that already. Make breakfast the largest meal, supper the smallest. Don't eat between meals. Drink water and nothing else. Every year somebody asks me the question, well, can I put a little bit of lemon in my water? If you want to. I mean, I'm not going to follow you around and like whack you if you have lemon in your water. I will tell you, if you ask your dentist about that, they'll say it's not a good idea because now you're putting acid on your teeth all day long, and acid on enamel is not a good thing. So I don't recommend it. But, it won't kill you for a few days. But learn to like drinking water. Like find some good water to drink. Last meal 3 hours before bed, we said that. Eat more fiber-rich foods, which you've already been doing because all the fruits and vegetables are fiber-rich foods. Almost all of them are. And eliminate processed foods from the diet. So if you do these 8 things consistently over time, your weight is going to correct over time, right? And sometimes there's a little details about, what exercise should I do? And so we'll get into that. Okay, that's page 6. Any questions on page 6? I know it seems a little repetitive, but these are like the things for weight loss, okay? Now, page 7. So this is a suggested daily menu plan. It gives you a little bit of guidance here. And this is just a suggestion. It's not a hard and fast rule, but there's good reasons behind this. So first thing, when you get up in the morning, probably drink some water. because you haven't been drinking water all night long, and you've been perspiring and you've been breathing vapor out, and so you're dehydrated. So this is a normal thing. So when you get up in the morning, drink some water, go for a walk, do your exercise, then come back and have breakfast. And so for breakfast, you might consider 3 servings of fruit, whole grain, maybe a second serving of a grain or a legume. So sometimes common breakfast at my house, for example, would be a polenta, a whole grain cornmeal, hot cereal, have a helping or 2 of that. I like to put in some nuts and some dried fruit, usually raisins, but sometimes other things in there. And then some kind of fresh fruit, apple or orange or something more exotic if it's in season or on sale. And that's a really good, healthy, balanced breakfast right there. So that's just one example. But this kind of gives you categories of things to think about how to form up a balanced breakfast that's going to be healthy. So in between meals, drinking water. I like to carry some with me. It's a challenge for me. I'll just admit that. I'm busy, people talking to me all the time. I'm in meetings, and then people trying to talk to me in between meetings, and then people are messaging me on my phone while I'm in meetings, and I got to call them back. And it's really easy for me to not even get a chance to go to the bathroom all day long, never mind drink water, right? So I have to keep it with me, and I drink enough water, and then somehow I'm reminded to go to the bathroom. So, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We need to take a little breaks.
How has Bluetooth?
So for lunch, vegetables, 3 vegetables. I just put 3 vegetables. I'm not a nutritionist, okay? Nutritionists will tell you for each vegetable what's a serving size. I think, give me a break. I don't need to measure serving size. Like, if I'm going to have vegetables, what do you have? You have, a piece of squash. You have some green beans. You have a potato, or you have a serving of beans. Very common. And then maybe some nuts and seeds. So you might put some, like have a handful of pumpkin seeds or something. And so there you go. It's very simple. It's not, what you'll notice is I'm not giving you lots of recipes. Although we will do that. We'll give you some recipes and we'll recommend some cookbooks and all that. But most of the time, most of your meals should just be simple whole foods. It's actually easier and less expensive that way, and is much, much healthier. And if you start thinking of in terms of simple whole foods and then just seasoning them a little bit to make them actually really tasty, that's so much better than all the processed junk that, so easy for us to fall into. And then more water, and then supper is optional, like I said. And typically at supper, we want to keep it simple, so less fat and less protein, because those take longer to digest. And so the more our stomach is digesting at night, then the less well we sleep. And then it's harder to get up in the morning, and then it's more likely to skip your devotions, your exercise, and your breakfast. Like the 3 things you should do every day before you leave your house, right? Have your devotions, do your exercise, and eat a good breakfast. You could also add getting dressed. That's probably a good idea as well. But they're all important. So that supper is going to be kind of, like I said, light, smaller meal, and optional if you're trying to lose weight. And then whether you drink more water before bed, that depends on your personal situation with your bladder and prostate and whatever else you got going on there. Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
Talk about whole grains in cereal. What's the best to go with it? Milk, soy milk, almond milk?
The best to go with is no milk.
No milk.
Yeah. Milk is for babies. That's right. It's good to know who's listening back there. So I say that, mostly tongue in cheek. The reason you ask the question is it's kind of a traditional thing to put milk on our cereal. And that's partially because if you're eating dry, cold cereal, then you kind of need something. But the other thing is most of us are probably too dehydrated and we're thirsty and we're not making enough saliva when we eat, or we're not chewing our food enough. So there's that too. So what I recommend, at my house, we have some soy milk and we have some almond milk and rice milk options available. You have to kind of be careful with those because most of them they're processed foods now. They're not whole foods anymore. And when they're processed, what gets added in there? Well, a lot of stuff gets added. Sugar, for one. Most of the plant-based milks that you buy in the store, they have sugar, and then they have processed fat added to it. So what I recommend, if you feel like you need something, is to go with something that's ideally less processed. So you might just add a little more water in the cooking so that it's not so dry. That's one idea. Another idea would be to add some fruit, like applesauce, or puree some fruit to add there. That's going to add a little liquid, a little moisture in there, but not add processed sugars and fats. Does that make sense? So I'm not saying you should never ever use one of those milk substitutes, but we want to minimize that, especially in the beginning here, but then also in the long term, think about that's may not be the best option to have as something that you do routinely. So, question or comment?
Have you ever made your own milk?
Yes. I think I have.
Easy.
I know my wife has. I think I've made it a couple of times. And so there's ways to do that too. Homemade options. That takes a little bit of work, a little bit of time. It's not necessarily excessive, but there's different ways to do it. It can be as simple as you have some leftover rice, throw it in a blender with a little bit of water and a couple drops of vanilla, and voila, there you have rice milk. It's not the same as the store-bought, but it's passable. It's good. Anyway, yes, question.
On breakfast, you
Yes.
have whole grain, and then you have the option of 2 whole grains or 1 whole grain and a liquid.
Yeah. Yep. So again, this is not giving you specifics on serving size and all of that. So sometimes people will just have 2 servings of the same thing, and sometimes it might be different things. And typically, combining a grain with a legume, many of those combinations are going to provide a complete protein source, which turns out is not all that important in getting it in the same meal. People used to believe that, and science hasn't proved it. So we don't worry about it too much here. But, I have friends that are from Mexico, and they like to have rice and beans and tortillas. So they're getting corn, whole grain corn tortillas, and brown rice and beans. And that's a fabulous base for any meal, according to my friends. I was staying with a guy from Mexico for a while, and I was a little bit surprised when we came down for breakfast the first day, and we had tortillas and beans on the table, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's actually from Mexico. It's like, that's very normal there. So this whole thing about, you have to have cereal for breakfast it's kind of a American cultural thing, and it's not bad, but it's not the only option. There are other options. Okay. Any other questions on the suggested menu plan? No. Okay. So this is not like an absolute rule. It's just a suggestion to kind of give you a place to start. You do have a question?
Tomorrow, we're supposed to eat a whole fruit and a smoothie, or
Doesn't have to be in a smoothie. You can make it a smoothie if you want to.
eat like grains or that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
What are the normal?
Yeah. So we're leaving the 100% fruit and vegetable smoothie diet behind.
Yeah.
You can still come back to that if you feel like you need a cleanse for some reason, or if you're trying to reset your diet again or something. It's not a bad thing to do, maybe periodically, but for long-term sustainable living, that's not really the best way. So now we're going back to eating food, but we want to keep it as close as possible to 100% whole plant foods. So, and it's going to be, again, mostly fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes. That's and tubers, so potatoes and sweet potatoes, stuff like that.